Cool, is that loud enough? Good. Welcome to all attending. I now have to read out the emergency evacuation announcement. There are no planned fire drills, so if the alarm activates, please leave the building in an orderly fashion via your nearest fire exit. Please use either the fire exit through the main doors of the hall or the fire exit in the storeroom adjacent to the stage. The fire assembly point is the island in front of the main entrance of the building. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by council staff. Please note, the meeting will be live streamed. Please switch off mobiles or turn them to silent. And a special reminder for members, and more particularly, especially for myself. Members, your voice will only be captured on live stream when your microphone is switched on. So please remember to switch your microphone on when you're invited to speak and switch it off again when you're not speaking. So thank you very much. Now turn to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've been notified of apologies for absence from Councillor Michael Hoy. Don't think there's any others. Non-members attending. I'm just looking around, make sure there's nobody over there. Councillor Simon Wootton, Councillor Ian Foster, Councillor Jim Gooding, and I believe Councillor Marriott from Holbridge is visiting. Welcome. The next item is item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of October. Do you all have them in front of you? Are you happy that I signed those minutes? Is it a true and fair view of the meeting that was held on the 18th of October?
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Item 4, to receive declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, members? There are none. Questions on notice from councillors? I've been notified of none. Item 6. I understand that Councillor McPherson, Chair of the ONS Committee, is not able to attend this evening. So I will run this item in another way. Item 6 is the One Team Transformation Programme, Strategic Partnership with Brentwood Borough Council, Q2 update. Greg Campbell, the author of the update, the original update that went to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, is here. I'm going to ask him, please, to run through the report very briefly. And also, I understand you're going to cover the presentation of the report of ONS to the same item. Is that correct?
Sorry, Chair, which item to
Item
ONS?
6.
I'm talking to the One Team this evening, the report that I did previously to ONS, yes.
Okay, and you'll be also speaking to the report of ONS in response.
Oh. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Okay, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and sorry for that confusion. I just suddenly realised what you were asking me. Apologies. Evening, members. So before you tonight is the One Team report that went to ONS. It covers Q2, which is May to July, so some time back now, and things have moved on. But talking to the report before us, and I'll probably come on to the item that was raised at ONS that is also mentioned in the report before you. I'll come on to that at the end when we talk about risk, because that was what it related to. Things have been going well within terms of one team, what we've been developing, what we've been pushing forward. Service reviews have continued to move it at the right pace and coming through to the programme board to be considered. What I can say is communications and HR are now complete. They're fully embedded and all positions that are to be filled have been filled. What I can also say is emergency planning, business continuity, risk management, customer services, and procurement, sorry, can remember that one, are all going through their consultation process at the moment. So over the next couple of months, that process should be complete and all teams will be therefore moved into the one team. Reviews continue. Support for staff is still being maintained by regular meetings with them, by myself going around to see the staff once a month, making sure that they've got any questions, providing support through HR, through the care schemes that we've got going on as well. There's also support that's come through from the one team on projects and programs, which now provides the ability for projects to be seen by both organisations so they can be managed in a proactive way. Coming on to the item that's been raised here around risk management, and if I just refer to the report, that further risk be added to the risk register relating to staff accommodation and welfare that could impact upon staff morale. We have, since this point, had a risk management workshop which specifically looked at the risks around one team. This was included in that. It was a joint workshop across both authorities, and that will now reflect in the risk register that you see before you. So next time, the risks that come out of that, the risks that we've been looking at and we had the workshop on, will be reflected in the new document that comes forward to you. It was a good workshop. We went through a number of risks. We identified any new potential risks, what the mitigations could be, and we're working through them now. That's it, Chair. Any further questions from anyone?
Thank you, Greg. Greg Campbell's inviting any questions, members, in relation to the original report. We will discuss the recommendation separately. So do you have any questions to ask of Mr. Campbell in the original report, the Q2 update? Councillor Stanley, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. We did mention at the workshop earlier several things that came to light with our staff, and hopefully we will get that report of what was mentioned as to the staffing levels and also what is the criteria that is making our staff having time out, as it's quite high at the moment. We saw the graph being quite high at 600 or 700 hours, I believe it's something like that. So was there something that was going to come to us?
Can I interrupt you?
Perhaps wrong.
Item 7 covers all of the issues you have raised. So could we wait till item 7? That's right, no problem. Any other questions from members, please? Okay. I just want to draw your particular attention to the recommendation. It's on page 6.1.1. It is proposed that the executive resolves that further risk be added to the risk register relating to staff accommodation and welfare that could impact staff morale. I would like to ask a question myself before we discuss that recommendation. I'd like to ask the question of the CEO, Jonathan Stevenson, who's here tonight. Jonathan, this is my question. As programme sponsor for one team, do you think there is a current risk around staff morale, particularly in relation to staff accommodation? And would you be supportive of adding such a risk to the risk register? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. With regard, that's probably a two-part question actually, right? With regard to morale generally, when you're going through any change program, there is some drops in morale, especially when different people are affected. So we monitor that in the report later. We'll talk about how we monitor more generally around that. So morale, when you're going through change and looking at restructuring, looking at different service design, that is the case. With regard to accommodation, we all know as an organisation that we've been on a journey looking at our staff accommodation from closing the Civic Suite originally, moving most of our staff to South Street, and then looking at other options moving forward. We've also had a pandemic in between that as well, and a number of those things that's caused. The workspace itself at South Street, as I put in the report later in the next item at 6.3, the venue itself doesn't lend itself to collaborative ways of working, which is the way most people now work when they come in their office space. Not many people come into the office space to work in a single office on their own. If they're going to do that, they do that at home. So to answer your question, it's not just from the one team, but with regard to the accommodation, there is obviously a pressure moving forward that we need to find a solution to accommodation because it is a common question asked at all our staff briefings at sort of what next. But I know we are now working on solutions, or we're working on solutions to deal with that on an interim and longer term basis as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Jonathan. Are there any other questions from other members on the recommendation? I would like to propose a replacement recommendation, having heard what Mr. Stevenson has had to say, and I'd like to add one as well. I'll read them out, and then you have the opportunity, obviously, to discuss them. The first one, which I'll call R1, is that the executive notes the progress of the One Team Transformation Programme. And I'm making that because we have reviewed the original report. At R2, that the executive asks the One Team Programme Board to include a risk relating to staff accommodation and welfare that could impact on staff morale on the risk register. And that would be a replacement of the published recommendation from ONS. I have a seconder. So Councillor
I'll second that.
Councillor James Newport is seconding it. Thank you. Floor's open. Councillor Stanley.
Just one thing that comes to mind is, do we have a time limit on the risk? In other words, do we have a 3-month or a 6-month to quantify what we're doing to our staff, the staff accommodation and such like? Are we going to put an interim time limit to give us up-to-date information?
Well, thanks for your question. Would either Mr. Campbell or Mr. Stevenson like to answer that?
Oh, no, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member. When the risks are put onto the risk register, there will be mitigations against those risks, and that provides a regular report back, whether it be through the One Team, although this is more of a corporate risk, I would have thought, and it will sit on that register, and there would be a mechanism for reporting those back. But there should be mechanisms within there which are the mitigations that shows how we're going to progress those risks to reduce them over time. The one you're talking about is obviously not something that can be finished or sorted quite quickly, but there should be some updates in there about the work that we're doing to find new accommodation, how we can relieve the stress that's there or the pressure that may be there at the moment. So that should be included in the risk mitigations. Is there anything further you want me to add?
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Okay, in which case I shall put the seconded proposals before you one by one, and we'll take a vote upon them. R1, that the executive notes the progress of the One Team Transformation Programme. Those in favour of the proposal?
Unanimous.
Unanimous with me, thank you. R2, that the executive asks the One Team Programme Board to include a risk relating to the staff accommodation and welfare that could impact on staff morale on the programme risk register. Those in favour, please show hands.
That's it. Put your hand up. Unanimous.
It is now unanimous. I'd just like to check. It's a good idea. Members, remember to turn on the mic. Members, we now move to item 7, the workforce overview 22-23, 23-24. And since the all-member briefing, which was available on Tuesday night, I understand that 221, 222 figures have been added to an amended report and circulated to all members and posted on CMIS for the public to see. This report comes from the Chief Executive and Head of Paid Service, Mr. Jonathan Stevenson. So I'll ask him to present and speak to the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, as the Chair said, in front of you, you've got a report, item 7, the workforce overview, 2022, 23, 23 and 24, and the amendment 2021 and 22. Just to assist members, following the meeting on Monday, which is the all-member briefing, there was the amendments to the report suggested by members to add the 2021-22 figures, which we've been able to get. But to help members, these have been added in point 1.3, 2.1 to 2.2, 3.3 and 3.6 of the report. Just to help with that, they are the only additions to the report that's been already on the website previously. It's unusual to add things and make an amendment, but as it was suggested by members, I think a number of members on the call, it was good to add those figures in, so you've got all the figures in front of you in the meeting. This is the first time that I'm aware that a report of this kind has come to Executive or the Council. The intention was to bring a report annually on figures for Rochford, and with the One Team moving forward, possibly figures taking into account Brentwood as well. But at this moment in time, we're looking at a Rochford only report, looking back over the last 2 years and the current year we're in. Obviously, just for members, 2021-22 and 2020-21 were different years in our living times. So there is some figures in there, but obviously take into account we're in during lockdowns and COVID for some of that as well. So just want to bear that. I'm sure people know that, but I just want to highlight that was the case. More than happy to take any questions on the report if anybody's got any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Members? We have Councillor Mrs. Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to our CEO, Mr. Stevenson, via yourself, if that's okay. I'm referring to, if you look at page 7.3, para 2.18, I'm aware that, I'm talking about the turnover figure, that the turnover figure for this year is apparently significantly lower than the previous year. But if, as your figures suggest, it will be a 9% turnover rate, that is still an awful lot in an organisation. When staff leave, I know that you've confirmed that exit forms are being done. Are there any trends? What are these exit forms telling us, please?
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Mrs. Wilson, with regard, did you reference 7.3, did you say? Was that page? Oh, sorry, page.
Page 7.3, para 2.18.
Yeah, okay, no problem. I should have said earlier as well, Nicola Mann is here tonight as well, Interim Director of People and Governance, to help me with some of the technical quiz. So with regard to the turnover rates, obviously, with a small organisation, the turnover percentages can be quite high. So for this organisation of circa 150 people, 15 people is 10%. So obviously it's still a context, because obviously a small organisation does the same. Previous years, the turnover rate, as you see, and it was brought up at the all-member briefing, is the last 2 years, in particular last year, we had a high level of retirements. For an organisation of 150, we had 6 retirements in that period of time. Also had a number of resignations. a lot of those were down to promotion or moving on to other organisations. With regard to your question around exit interviews, where we can, we have an exit interview with all staff. It is a voluntary. We encourage them, and most of the time people undertake those with their line manager or with someone independent. If that's the case, they've got an opportunity to do that as well. With regard to the technical side of that, I'm happy for Nicola to pick up any questions around that if I've missed anything.
Thank you. I think the question was there any trends? So what I would say of the exit questionnaires that we have received, there is nothing to suggest there's a trend. People are just choosing to make different choices and leave. There's nothing there that would show us a trend at this moment.
Wish to come back, Mrs. Wilson?
Yes, please. It's more of a comment and a concern, really. I don't think for response, but normally in small organisations, any turnover rate more than 6 or 7% is a concern, because smaller organisations tend to become families, so the turnover rate does tend to be historically lower. And yeah, I'm just concerned. I know there's a lot of change going on, but nevertheless, the numbers are still quite high. That's just all I wish to say. Thank you.
Chair, thank you, Councillor Mr. Wilson. Again, I know we're looking for a response, but just obviously the direction of travel we're looking to come down. That's what we're looking to do. You're right. Turnover rates are a key focus on the organisation. From the data and information we've got, we don't see there's trends and reason. Obviously, just people making change of life decisions. We're monitoring that now. We'll monitor it moving forward and we'll report back. We're looking to do this on an annual basis, a minimum, or by exception if there was a reason to bring back any concerns to the to executive.
Okay, Councillor Stanley, did you indicate?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I bring your attention to 7.2, 2.1, and 2.3, 2.2 and 2.3. It says here that we've got 43 vacancies become vacant, yet we recruited 25 positions, and there were still 10 vacancies where recruitment to follow multiple recruitment campaigns. So I don't know if those positions were taken up, those 10 vacancies were taken up, which leaves us with 35 out of the 43, which there's 8 more positions to be accounted for. I don't know if they've been accounted for or not. And also, we had 28 officers left the organisation. Apart from the retirements, and well, we got resignations of 18. What was the thought behind that of those people that left? Was it it doesn't say for what reason that was gone, apart from obviously they want to maybe step up the ladder or that sort of thing. And I just wonder why, you know, as we're losing good officers, it just seems to me that we need to look into that a little bit further. And the fact that we've got 22 positions which have been recruited externally, why have we done 22 positions externally? Why haven't we got them on our staff? That's my first question. My second question is, with the number of hours lost of 730 days lost, can you say where those 730 days have been lost? Is it to people that are working outside in weather conditions, or is it those majority of days lost for those working in offices of RDC? I think those are the 2 questions. Thank you.
Nicola, is that for you to respond, or would Jonathan like to do so? Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley. Thank you, Chair. With regard to, just to be clarified this, on 2.7, there was 45 vacancies became vacant, newly created and advertised. 25 positions were recruited directly and 10 vacancies recruited to following multiple recruitment campaigns. So that, my understanding, that's 35. So 8 posts weren't recruited to either single advertisement or multiple advertisement. So there was a deficit of filling posts of 8 posts. 22 posts were recruited externally. So of the 35, 13 of those were internally. And it doesn't say that directly in the report, but that was what's happened. So, and that was the 8 posts. So that hopefully clarifies the point. So obviously there was 8 posts that weren't recruited to in that period of time.
The question was, we've recruited 22 positions. Are they external operators to the council, or are they employed by the council at the council offices themselves? They're externally. I thought that was an external person that you've got recruited rather than into the council.
No, just for clarification. So that's 22 people came from outside of the council to work for the council in that period of time. And 13 people were recruited internally, either for promotion or moving posts within the organisation. So that made the 35 with 8 posts left vacant. Does that help with that question?
Councillor Stanley.
Partially, I just wanted to know if those people that recruited externally, are they now on our staff in the council, or are they external people like we've got with enforcement and such like? But that's all. Sorry, we can go on to the other question if we can, 700.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Stanley. So yeah, just to clarify, they were external. Now they are internally on our books, as employees of the council. So just to clarify that. Your other question, actually, before I go on to we talked about the resignations, retirements, this as well. I think you just highlighted the number. I think previously I gave a bit of context around that about people career progression, people have moved on to different jobs. COVID's provided opportunity to some that actually people working close to home or working from home, and obviously not all of our roles allow people to work from home all the time. And actually our principles, we ask people to come into place 2 or 3 days a week as well. So some people made some life choices around that period of time. So there was an increase. Also to remind members is during that period of time, the organisations did come together as the one team, and obviously there was a reduction in that of the senior level of staff. So we saw a high proportion of senior staff coming together and make decisions to leave the organisation, because we went from 2 chief execs to 1, 4 directors to 2, and 12 corporate directors to 9. So there was obviously some rationale around that as well. With regard to your sickness, I'll pass over to Nicola to perhaps comment on that, and happy to come back in if needed. So.
Hi, thank you. Just to clarify, was it in relation to 3.6, 2022-2023 long-term absences? Was 730, is that the one you're referring to? Okay. So when we looked at the figures, we didn't distinguish kind of the type of role that a person was doing. We distinguished between long-term and short-term. Definition of long-term being 20 days or more. And then what we did is we looked at those members who were off for 20 days or more, and the top reasons for absence, which in this case was sort of cancer-related absences or cardiac absences. So they were the main reasons. So we didn't break it down into whether they might be in South Street or whether they might be maybe in the parks or something like that. We didn't do that.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Jonathan. You want to come back?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I understand what you're saying, but when you say cardiac and other causes, are we saying that majority of that 730 was that result of that, or what are we saying with that 730? Because my view is that if that is a known cause, that there is tension in the office that's causing these heart conditions, cardiac arrests and that sort of thing, surely we should be doing something in relation to what is the cause and how we would mitigate that with those people. If it's outside work where we're asking for too much on inclement days, working throughout the rain, and I do know they do, is that a cause as well, where we should look at what's going on and try to mitigate those positions?
Personally, Councillor Stanley, I think we're going too far, expecting too much, but I'll allow Nicola to reply.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor. Just to reassure members, obviously there's some figures in the paper that talks about high level numbers, and we do look at those types of things you're talking about. With regard to long-term sickness, it's mainly underlying health issues, things that are not directly impacted from the work. We obviously investigate things like that, but there is no direct link. With short-term sickness, there is sometimes where we look at, I don't know, flu, things like that. Have people caught that from working in different conditions? Have people, so things that are, or respiratory problems or muscle problems, things like that, things that may be linked to manual working. That would be something we look at. The issues that, unfortunately, as an organisation, we had a number of people on long-term sickness because of underlying health issues that they're not directly linked to the work into the workforce. So, but I understand that concern. But with regard to short-term in particular, when things do come up like muscle injuries, things like that, and if they're mainly frontline staff, we would look into that to consider, is that the impact of the job they're doing? So hope that helps.
Any other members, please? Councillor Mrs Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come back. I should have asked this all at once, however, I didn't. We've covered sickness, so thank you, Councillor Stanley, for that. That's asked my question, sort of. My next question is regarding your golden ticket scheme, which I have to say, in my view, has to be highly commended because it's all good staff motivation and good for staff morale. Could you let me know, please, because it's not in the report unless I've missed it, what percentage of staff at Rochford would normally receive a golden ticket award during a year?
So like 10, 20.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Wilson. I haven't got their figures in front of me. Obviously, with reward and recognition, it's for people who've gone above and beyond. In any year, what we try not to do is target an amount, because if there's more people going above and beyond one year, it'd be wrong to say, sorry, we've only got 10 golden tickets. But there is a budget within the council we have to try and work to. But again, there is some tolerance with that, and I would speak to Carrie. If people have gone above and beyond one year, we wouldn't restrict that, we wouldn't reward people. Obviously, people go above and beyond every day, but these are significant people going above and beyond. So if that's the case, so I can get a number of how many I've had in previous years. During COVID, it's difficult because obviously lots of people went above and beyond, so there wasn't as many rewarded for that period of time because everybody was. So, but when there's significant things that have happened within the council, either individuals or teams, and I think on the meeting this week we talked about if a team's awarded, they don't share the golden ticket. There's a gift for each member of the team, not they don't have to share their prize. So,
Thank you, Mr Stevenson. Okay, I'm now looking around to see if there are any further questions on the workforce review from members. Not. The report is for noting, and I'll ask the committee to do so in a moment, but I want to thank Mr Stevenson and Nicola Mann for bringing this report forward earlier than expected, as it has been well received by members, and not just of the executive, but members of the council as a whole. And I do hope that this will then become a regular annual report for consideration. Jonathan, I understand you wish to say something else? Of course.
thank you, Chair. Let me come in. I just would like to, if it's okay, to put on record, because Zoe Saywood isn't here this evening because she's on a development programme herself, which is great, but she's done an awful lot of work when the report's given you. I know you might not be aware of that behind the scenes. She's she's doing our interim HR manager. I think it'd be nice to put on record the thanks for her as well.
Thank you, Jonathan. Members, do we agree to note the report?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. In which case, we now move to item 8. Item 8, Q2 budget monitoring. To consider the report of the Executive Lead Member for Resources, Climate and Change and Economy, setting out the forecast revenue and capital budget positions as at the end of Q2 23-24. Well, the Executive Lead Member is unfortunately unable to attend. So if I may, I'd like to invite the report author, Kerry Cox, Finance Manager, to lead us through. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report sets out the forecasts for revenue and capital spend as at the end of September. The table on page 8.2 shows a forecast underspend of 281,000, and it's broken down into the service areas by salary and the non-salary variances. The variances are then explained in more detail on page 8.4 onwards. The main reasons for the variance is we've received £430,000 additional investment income due to higher interest rates, and this has been offset by pressures on the Millhall expenditure and housing benefit expenditure. The capital programme can be found in Appendix 3 on page 8.21. That's showing a expected £2.1 million slippage, which is mainly due to the £1.78 million that was allocated for the ADP, which is now subject to review. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Members, have you any questions for Gary Cox on the Q2 outturn, please? I think the report has been round several times in various places informally. Do you have any further questions? Apparently not, in which case, again, a report which gratefully received from Kerry and Tim. They are welcomed. It is a useful and appropriate update. The committee welcomes it. Thank you. So, members, do we note the report?
Noted.
Thank you. I now move to item 9. Item 9 is the installation of skate parks. To consider the report of the Executive Lead Member for Leisure, Tourism and Wellbeing. I think you must have the longest title. Recommending the Council continues to deliver on its place-based improvement programme. That's Councillor Julie Gooding. And we also have Marcus Houghton, Director of Environment, here as well. I'm not sure who's going to start, but you're more than welcome to choose.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just start off with, obviously, we've all seen the report. Skateboarding, BMX and scooters are considered a relatively inexpensive activity once the equipment has been provided. It's a safer place for people to enjoy leisure activities than street skateboarding, and skate parks provide recreational activities for a broad spectrum of age and gender to enjoy socialising. Currently, both Holbridge and Rayleigh Skate Park have reached their end of life and no longer fit for purpose. In the report, it is noted that Clements Hall requires further consideration in respect of sighting and noise levels due to the proximity to the local residents and properties. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Before questions, I'd invite Mr. Houghton to say a few words, if that's appropriate.
Thank you, Chair. If I can bring your attention to 2.9 in the report. And this is more for clarity than anything else. It mentions the details of skate park design and location as set out in Appendix 3. This is more just for clarity for those that cannot access Appendix 3 because it's exempt. So the location in itself isn't sensitive at all. It's just that it happens to be part of the design bid that was submitted, which is commercially sensitive. So it's unfortunate that it's put in there. It's an oversight on my behalf, which I apologise for. So to be clear, though, the actual siting of it is at Rayleigh Leisure Centre. It's in the report, but it does mention elsewhere Swain Park originally in the consultation, but it was decided that it was going to be at Rayleigh Leisure Centre. So it's not siting as it is now, which is tucked down right next to the leisure centre, but it's brought up onto the same level as the playing field, so there's better sight lines and sort of natural surveillance of that skate park. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton. Thank you very much, Councillor Mrs. Gooding. Members, any questions? Right, I'm going to take Councillor Mrs. Newport first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask what is the environmental impact as a whole on the new installation of the skate parks?
So the actual footprint itself is not that large. So I think you're finding an ecological impact on what is a playing field of short grass. So that the impact is what you deem minimal. In terms of the actual, if you like, design and build of the skate park, I haven't got an answer to hand in terms of its footprint, but that would not be used usually as the scope of the footprint of the organisation. It's a one-off development. So once it's built, it still has minimal impact at that stage.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Thank you. Councillor Stanley, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could the officer advise us as to when the skate parks will start to be installed, and also the maintenance of the cost of what would he consider to be the cost of maintenance to these skate parks, please? Thank you.
I'm reluctant to give an exact time scale at this stage until we've awarded the contracts, and then we'll be able to at least discuss with the contractor that sort of time scales. We can obviously bring that back if it's something you wish to know, Councillor Stanley. But I would anticipate that from design, potentially planning application and approval, and then development, you may be looking at still 12 months before they're completed. In terms of maintenance costs, I don't have a figure to hand, but what I do know is that they will be less than the cost of the existing skate parks to maintain, because I think, as you're aware, the nature of the existing skate parks are such that the maintenance costs are quite, they're taking a heavy burden on the budget. So although we allow for that, a concrete design would be of a lower maintenance cost than what we're paying out for the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton. I have Councillor Williams, then Councillor Reeves. Councillor Williams, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Marcus, I was just wondering, when these were being designed, were pump tracks considered at the same time?
They were discussed. I think realistically, so the design of these tries to incorporate BMX bikes where possible. I think pump tracks are of a different scale. You'd have to have a separate design on top of these, I think, to do so. So I think that's something that certainly the lead member has expressed a desire for me to pursue, and we are going to do so. But I think the budget was originally allocated for replacing existing skate parks, which are at the end of their lives.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
Is that complete? Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Chair. I note in the report we're looking at these being replaced because previous ones have come to end of life. With the new parks that are looking to come in, do we have an expectation of how long these things will be considered usable, which will give us an idea, an inclination as to how much value we're going to be getting out of this spend, please? Thank you.
I mean, so there have been views of up to 40 years, but the warranty is 20 years. So I would go with the 20 years. So I think we get at least 20 years minimum use out of each of these parks.
Okay, I'd like to think it's a bit longer than that, but yes, thank you.
It's always an aspiration, Councillor Reeves. Any further questions, members? No further questions. There are two recommendations. I always like to take them separately. So R1 is to award Rayleigh Leisure Centre skate park contract to Betton Park at a cost of £138,034.49. Okay. Those in favour of the recommendation, please. No, it's okay. Just take a step back. I've made an error. Thank you very much, Sonia, for pointing out. I need a proposer for the recommendation. Councillor Mrs Gooding, and a seconder, Councillor Stanley. So having completed the right and proper process, for which I apologise for missing, can we now please indicate in favour of the recommendation? Yes, I'm allowed. That is unanimous. The second recommendation, proposed by Councillor Mrs Gooding, seconded by Councillor Mrs Wilson. R2, to award Pools Lane Holbridge Skate Park contract to Betton Park at a cost of £153,576.54. Would those in favour of the recommendation please show hands? Again, that is unanimous. Thank you, members. I'll just turn over the page in case they fooled me, which they haven't. And I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Thank you for the officers for attending, the visitors for attending. And I close the meeting at 8:16. Thank you.